Joseph Kasaji, Pastor Joe.
Murphy, how you doing?
I'm good. Welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure as well.
But thanks for joining. So, Pastor Joseph, we met. Well, actually, we met in church, and approximately 2019, you invited me to join your cell. At that time, you were a cell leader,
Yes.
right? And I have to say, after joining that cell and having conversations with you, we've developed a friendship. And today, I'd like to just start off our conversation with cell
Okay.
and you being a cell leader. How did you get to that point?
Actually, thanks once again for having me on your show. So how did I become a cell leader? So what happened was a couple of years ago, we had a couple of guys, right? We had a couple of guys who were looking for a house. All of us went to the same church, so we're looking for a house around the city. We're all living separately, but at some point we're like, you know what? Let's get a house and start living together. Then yeah, by then I wasn't part of a cell, but because we were all in the same house, like, you know what, we should just start a cell in the house. So that's how we started a cell in the house, right? And it, I struggled with it for a little bit, but eventually I gave in, and we started a cell in the house. Then we were four of us at the beginning, then eventually we grew. The cell kept on growing. At some point, we even got to a point of multiplying. So that's how my cell life started.
It was very unique though because was an all men's cell,
Yeah.
and it's I have to say it's very difficult these days, especially in Canada, to be in a situation where you have men in one in one place talking about things not only about church and spiritually building each other, but also other aspects as well.
Yeah.
And that was very unique in my case. I was wondering if that was especially your choice in going along that line. You just wanted all men cell, or was it something else?
In a way, yes, because the way normally we used to organize cells, because when typically when you start cell, well, by then I was a youth, right? How time flies.
Mhm.
By then I was a youth, and typically youth cells had to be one sex, and
Mhm.
then and everybody was single at the time. Well, now everybody's married, but at that time everybody was single. So right, so we really had no spouses. So it just made a lot of sense that okay, we're all single guys. Let's start a cell together. And at some point, people started getting married. Almost everybody in the cell was married, but because we had already built that bond ahead of time. So, like, you know what? Even as much as we're married, we're still gonna keep our cell just a male only cell. So, and it used to be nice because I feel like a lot of times guys get women always take the conversation, right? So it was kind of nice to get to a point, because you ask a question and the women on average the women will respond, but in a guy cell you have to take the words out of the guy. So that was really cool about the guy cell that we had.
Yeah, yeah, it was really interesting because when I was in Toronto, I was also as- going to a cell. I don't know if you knew that, but I was also going to a cell, but it was mixed. I mean,
Okay.
I had a good experience there, no lie. I mean, but to some extent, I felt better joining your cell,
Mhm.
having conversation with guys, and we were able to talk about men's stuff. Basically, we were able
Exactly.
to let down our guards down, and we were able to have like conversations that normally we wouldn't be able to do and be able to have, right? So I really appreciated that.
And the
So
interesting thing, sorry, just before we move on, the interesting thing about ourselves also, because we're all kind of in the same demography, right? So it's
mhm,
like, and I believe that with life, you either what you're coming out, somebody's going through it, or somebody's coming out. So there's that continuous cycle. So like just having a lot of people in the same age group probably having the same challenges. I think that also really helped with making the cell way more effective, because we all had the same challenges. Either you're coming, so somebody will share testimony, like, man, I know I'm also gonna come out one day.
Yeah, it was a motivation, and it was also a place where you could lean on somebody,
Yeah.
not only spiritually and also in terms of advice, in terms of networking, because I did meet a lot of cool people in cell, right? And up to today, we're still friends, right? And I have learned a lot from them, not only from the biblical aspect or the spiritual aspect, but also about life in general, right? So I feel like cell like has a lot of benefits and a lot of advantages, right? And the thing, when I joined the cell, was 2019, right? And right after the pandemic hit,
Yes, yes.
and cell became the place where like I was able to connect with
With
people.
other.
Remember, we were like we're always meeting on Zoom, and that's was how we connected with people. Like, so cell for me was a big deal during that time. I don't know how it was for you at that time, though you were the leader at that time.
No, honestly, even me, it's always something I always look forward to, right? Especially during the pandemic. At the beginning of the pandemic, I worked from home. I think the first year or so, I was working from home, and typically at work, everybody's
Mhm.
sending you an email, get it done, on to the next thing, right? So it's like that we miss that human interaction, but you know that every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. guys are coming, you're gonna talk, you'll be able to laugh. And it's also good to just know how people are doing, because that was the pandemic was a very rough patch for a lot of people, right? So not just the fact that I'm gonna talk to people, but it was also nice to just hear how people are doing, because you never know. Maybe somebody caught COVID 2 days ago, but through the cell group we're able to be fairly in touch with everybody.
Yeah, yeah. And I still appreciate the benefits of cell. I feel like it's something really good to be part of, especially being a being in church or going as a Christian. I feel like that also has its own benefit. So, Pastor Joseph, that's not something I'm going to talk about, because I think you are more conversant about the benefits of sales. So maybe I'll just let you talk about it a little bit more.
In terms of the benefits, of course, there's a spiritual growth that comes. That being the primary reason of cell is to bring about the spiritual growth. But I think another key aspect is the community that it brings, right? Because
Mhm.
I find that these days it's very hard to find like-minded people, right? You can agree with somebody, maybe career-wise, when it comes to certain topics, you're like, oh, I don't know if I agree with you, right? So it's like
Mhm.
it's very, very difficult to find all-rounded people that you know that, okay, I know if I make this person my friend, we can agree on 90% of the issues that are gonna arise. So I think that's another huge benefit, is just having like-minded people, right? Because there's so many, I'll give an example. There's so many ways to getting rich. There's some wrong ways to get rich, right? But you know, if you're gonna pair up with somebody from sale, you know they're gonna give you the right counsel or the right advice. So spiritual growth, finding like-minded people, and also community, right? I was an international student. I believe you also came as an international student to Canada,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Literally, you know nobody in Canada. You don't know how to do certain things, and just having that community of people, knowing that, okay, I have friends, I have people I can call, and all that. Those, I think, those are the three major benefits of cell: spiritual growth, hanging out with like-minded people, and just the community that cell brings your way. I think for me, those are the three main benefits that I see with cell.
yeah, and I relate with that. And most especially you talking about community, I feel like the cell is one type of community that helps most especially newcomers, as you were saying, coming from Zambia to Canada
Mhm.
and all of that, how it helped you. Right. So I've seen a few people come into the cell and will strike up relationships, friendships, and I've seen the benefit of cell because it's also an area where you get a lot of information, as you said, being a community. So not only the spiritual aspect, but also life in general. You get so much information from people that you meet in cell, right? Most
Exactly.
usually people that have been in Canada a little bit longer, they can be able to help you out and things like that. So I think it's one key resource for anybody
That's
who's
true.
like, looking to connect with the community.
That's true.
So Pastor Joseph,
Mhm.
you started, I met you being a, a, a cell leader. Well,
Mhm.
how did your journey started? I guess, were you saved in Zambia, or or
Yes.
when you got to Canada, that's when you got saved?
No, I was saved when I was in Zambia in 2009, either end of 2009 or 2010. I really forget exactly when it happened, but it was, I know I'd written my exams and I was home. So between end of 2009 and beginning of 2010. Well, when I got saved, I didn't think of it as a big deal. I just thought, oh, I'm just going to say sinner's prayer and that's it, right? But so I didn't really take note of the date. But yeah, so I got saved in Zambia during a conference. And then since then, here we are.
Okay, that's good. And so you came to Canada, you joined the church, and you started. Did you start off like being an usher, or did you start? Which goal did you start off with before getting into a leadership position? How did your growth in the church go?
Okay, so when I joined the church, I think by then we used to produce CDs. So typically, what would happen in church is some people, it still happens now, but now there's YouTube, so you don't need to produce CDs anymore. So
Mhm.
what used to happen was those people that were serving downstairs would record the pastor preach. Then after he's done, while he's preaching, we'll record. Then once the service is over, then would make copies of CDs of the sermon and then would distribute it to the people that were serving downstairs, right? Because that was the only way they could get access to the teaching that occurred. So yeah, I was doing that for the long. Of course, the world moved forward, right? But for the longest
Yeah.
time, that's what I was doing. And at some point, I started helping out. I started helping out in the sound ministry with the soundboard and all that.
Mm.
Yeah, so I've done quite a bit.
Okay, so you helped out with the sound ministry, and then did you um, moved on to another role, or was it
So
straight into leadership?
no, yeah, I think around the time when I was still producing the CDs, I think I joined the church in 2013, October 2013.
Mhm.
So after producing the CDs for a little while, I think the summer of 2015, I was asked to start leading the youth ministry in our church, right? And the thing with the youth ministry, you have to do everything, right? You have to learn how to do you have to learn how to do everything. So then after I took over the youth ministry in 2015, I think at that point, like I had to learn how to do everything. So since then, I don't know how many things I've been able to. The only thing I don't know is that I'm not part of the music. That's I think that's the only thing I haven't done in church in the past 9 years, right? I think
9 years.
other than that, I've probably done everything else in church.
Wow, well, that's good to know. Well, Pastor Joseph, like sometimes, how this, sometimes we kind of like neglect being a leader or taking on roles and capacities within the church. We just kind of feel like it's not an experience, but in a way, you're in a community of
Mhm,
people, right? Although it's more biblically based, spiritually based, but you're in a community of like-minded people, and you're leading, you're taking on roles
mhm.
and capacities. Like, how do you feel um, it has benefited you, in life? You know, leading in church, or gaining these experiences? As you're saying, you were doing so many things, uh,
Yeah, so basically, when you come to Canada, most of us, I don't know, I think you came after your undergrad, right? But most of
yeah.
us who come to Canada right out of high school, for you to get your first job, you need to have something to write on your resume, right? And
Mm.
in an average country, in an average African country, you probably did nothing before coming to Canada. So like, I think the first thing that was on my resume is the volunteering experience that I gained in church, right? So that was one of the main benefits. But then the other benefit that comes with it is like, your leadership skills grow, right? Your leadership skills grow, and it's not just going to give a positive impact in your church surrounding, but even in the secular world, right? So personally, I started by when I took over the youth ministry, I had to preach almost every Saturday. So it gave me the confidence to be able to stand in front of people. Right now, when I started teaching in the secular world, everybody's like, "Oh, you're such a good teacher." Well, it started from somewhere. I can just imagine the dread that could have been upon my face if the first time I ever stood before people was when I was teaching in the secular world, right? But yeah,
Mhm.
so personally, it's helped me to develop a lot of leadership skills, learning how to deal with people. It's funny. People in the secular world refuse to take on certain positions, saying, "Oh, I don't think I'm ready to lead people. I'm comfortable where I am." But with a background in church, you're like, "Okay, I've been leading a team. I've been
Mhm.
leading a team and all that." So that kind of gives you even an upper hand in terms of promotion and all those other things. Then there's also the technical aspect, right? I do a lot of technical things in church, which in a way sharpen other skills and things like that. So honestly, the benefits are a lot. You might not realize them, but that definitely a lot of benefits. A lot of things can be transferred from the from the church circles into the secular world.
Wow. 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 Well, that's good to know. That's really good to know. I mean, like you said, there's so much to gain being part of the church, right? So, Pastor Joseph, you said two things. You said teaching you know, teaching outside there, and as you said earlier, or as I know, anyways, you are a lecturer at
Mhm.
Algonquin, right? And you said something again that I kind of resonate with, but I'll come back to that anyways.
Mhm.
So let's move on to being a lecturer at Algonquin. And you teaching, yeah, you were saying teaching. So how does teaching varies in your own personal experience?
Mhm.
Varies between teaching, because I know you have a love for teaching anyways. You're a lecturer, so that means you have a love for teaching, right? So
Oh, the
how
man
does
is
that,
good.
pardon?
Oh, the man is good. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. So how does teaching differs between be in the church and out there in your profession?
Oh wow, that's an interesting question. And the funny thing, I feel like this one thing I really fail at, right? Because
Uh-huh.
I'm sure even as you see, as I'm talking, I like to be expressive. I like to move my hands, which in a church setting is acceptable. But when you go
Mhm.
to a lecture room, people like sometimes are like, "Oh man, why are you always asking for us to give you feedback?" But well, it's because in the church setting you're always
Uh-huh.
asking for feedback. Somebody shouting amen and all that stuff, right?
But
But
but but when if you're getting a lot of hallelujah, amen, isn't that like feedback? Don't you kind of like, okay, the crowd, or the church members are getting what I'm preaching or what I'm saying?
exactly, but in a typical classroom, you don't get that feedback. So it's like I'm always
Mhm.
asking my students, "Is it clear?" I need feedback, right? But
Okay.
it takes a bit of resetting in the mindset. It's like, okay, these guys are not gonna give you feedback every minute, right? Like, compared to a church setting. And I think the other thing too is passion, right? Because
Mm.
typically when you're preaching, you do it with passion. So I have to always try to regulate my voice in a class setting. I'm like, even if I'm passionate about what I'm trying to explain, this is a classroom setting, regulate your voice better. Well, in an African church, it doesn't matter. Maybe in some other races that might be an issue. So, in terms of trying to regulate your voice and things like that, those are some of the adjustments that I have to make from, like, maybe from a preaching perspective to a classroom perspective.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you this question, Pastor Joseph. Which one do you love the most?
Sorry. Sorry. Which one do I love the most? That's an interesting
Which
question.
one do you love the most?
I think I prefer preaching to teaching in the secular, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that I prefer that.
No, okay. Is there any reason or?
Um, Reason being, I feel like, well, I guess it's about passion. I'm more passionate about preaching the word of God than teaching in the secular. But I also feel I'm not. People say I'm patient, but sometimes I could be a bit impatient, right? So, in the in the secular world, you have to make sure everybody understands what you're trying to teach. And sometimes when somebody is not getting it, you've explained it in 20 different ways. I could get a bit impatient with that. Well, that doesn't happen in the church circles, right? Because everybody pretend like they understood what you are teaching, or maybe the Holy Spirit will translate what you are teaching for them to understand. So there's a little bit of that.
Okay. All right. Before we move on, Pastor Joseph, one final one.
Mhm.
Do you feel do you feel do you get a better feeling when you feel like, okay, I've reached out to somebody and I've actually changed somebody's life, like when you're preaching to somebody or you having a one conversation, but in that church setting, compared to when you teach somebody in the classroom and the person gets it, like
Mhm.
when you compare those two feelings, which one do you feel like?
Well, because I lean more towards preaching than teaching the secular. So definitely there will be greater fulfillment in helping one person get established in church. And just because what we do in church is for internal benefits, right? What I do in the
Mhm.
secular, well, I'm preparing them to become electrical technicians and technologists, but that's just in this life, right? It doesn't
Mhm.
have internal benefits. The most impact that that person is probably going to make from the knowledge that I give them will just benefit the world as it is today, right? While in the church setting, there's those the internal benefits to it, right? That's
Yeah.
a life that you have changed. Even if you look at the impact, you share the gospel with one person, right? You share the gospel with one person. That one person might end up sharing the gospel with 20 other people, and it just keeps on continuing. But in the secular world, you teach somebody, probably the people that will benefit the most as are his or immediate family and the company they
Mhm.
work for. So the influence in the secular is way less than the influence or the potential that your seed has in the spiritual aspect. If
No,
that
okay.
makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does make sense. You know, in the spiritual aspect, you're saying that it's far, the benefit or the impact that you could make is far reaching compared to, you know, um, in the circular world. It makes sense to me completely. I get it, and I'm not pretending that I get it. I get
No.
it. I, Pastor Joe, like people know you, people that and I got to know you. Everybody call you Pastor Joe. So how did that name come about?
Well, I guess it's mostly after leading. Well, everybody thinks that people who I don't really consider myself a pastor, right? But it's just because I guess I led the youth ministry, and every time somebody's preaching, everybody, oh, pastor, pastor, and all that, right? So
Uh huh.
I
And then,
guess I guess it came with time, right?
uh
And I feel, well, I kind of ran away from the title. I feel like even from a young age, people have always used that title, right? I tried to run away from it as much as
it's like you're not gonna. There's no way you can run away from it.
I don't believe, well, titles are good, but in reality,
Uh-huh.
it's really more about your relationship with God and the influence that you're making, right? Because I feel like, especially in African cultures, we love titles way too much, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
I don't know. I was talking to somebody, and they were like, not I was talking. I was listening to a conversation with somebody, and they were about to address somebody who I think they had 3 PhDs, and they're like, doctor, doctor.
Doctor.
I'm like, what doctor is enough? We understand. Anyway, that's just by the way.
That's interesting that you call him doctor.
Though, when I came to Canada, one of the shockers was here people don't love titles, right? Even at
Yeah.
Algonquin College, we all go by our first names. Typically, you see somebody call you professor. Typically,
Hmm.
when they're international students in the first or second semester. By the time it's getting the third semester, they also get sucked into the system and they begin to call you back, which is totally fine. But anyway, but in African cultures, it's like we wanna add all the titles one person has,
Uh,
right?
I know, I know. I don't know what it is. I think maybe it builds respect. It gives you that status in society, and I think that's part of our culture, right? Having status is something, it's something in our society. Anyways, like we've
But
always had this.
I'm also a firm believer, right? We shouldn't use titles. Let the things you do justify your title, right? You can be called doctor, but you could have also bribed people to give you those degrees, which is something that happens in Africa, right? Everybody has got honorary degrees. Well, in fact, people with honorary degrees shouldn't really be called doctors, right? But anyway, but let the work that you do speak for itself compared to you just crying for titles.
Yeah, that's an interesting take, Pastor Joe. That's a very interesting take. But I don't want to digress too much into
Okay,
that.
Paris.
I wanna let's come back. Let's come
Yeah.
back to you being a lecturer. How did you get into it? Like, was it something that you always wanted to do, or was it just series of decisions that led you into being a lecturer?
I would say it happened by happenstance or by chance. So what
Mhm.
happened was I graduated from Algonquin College in 2016, I believe. Yeah, and then I think that semester there was a shortage of instructors to teach in the program, right? So then they were like,
Mhm.
okay, let's try to look for some students that were really good. So they tried to reach out to a couple of people. Some had found jobs, but for me, by then I was still searching for a job. So they told me, "Oh, do you mind teaching this lab?" I was like, "Okay, sure. I'll take the lab. I'll teach." And then I got a referral from one of my old professors, one of those strict ones, and they showed the program. Was like, okay, if this strict professor can give you a reference, then definitely you deserve it. But in fact, even before I became, then I started as an instructor because I was just teaching the labs. I used to tutor people. I used to tutor people at Algonquin and things like that. So
Mm.
I was kind of that background. Then that's how I started teaching the labs, and then after that, I kept getting contracts. Now it's been like since 2016. That's how many years? About 8 years. 8 years of
8 years.
yeah. And with time, I've taught other courses. I've led different courses, course development, and all that stuff. So it's been a fun 8 years.
Wow, that's impressive, Pastor Joe. That's impressive. So 8 years teaching. Wow. So I guess it's a passion for you, right?
It is
It's a
at this
passion.
point. At this point, it's become a passion, right? It's just nice. People come in week one, they are so lost and they don't know what's going on. After about 14 weeks, they realize they feel like they know everything. Then they go into the real world and realize, oh my God, I just know a little bit. Yeah, but it is a passion. I enjoy doing it.
Oh, okay. So would you see yourself teaching for as long as you can, or
No, I don't think so. I just think it's for the now, and really I'm getting to a point where my time is becoming more and more pressed. It's probably the next thing that I'm getting rid of on my schedule. But I enjoy it, but I also feel the other things that I have to focus my time towards. But for now it's going, but I feel like with two kids and all that, and because I have a regular 9 to 5 job, I do it in the
Mhm.
evening. So time is becoming a big challenge as of
Yeah,
now. Yeah, maybe when the kids grow up a little bit, I might get a bit more time. But yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
yeah. I guess it takes a lot of balancing.
It does.
Yeah. So, Pastor Joseph, right?
Yes, bro.
You are also an electrical engineer by profession, right?
Yes.
Did you was electrical engineering something that you wanted to do when you were even back home, or is it
Mm,
something that you decided to do when you came to Canada?
no, I decided to do electrical engineering from back home, but you know, you know, the funny thing that everybody when they're growing up, they have, oh, I really want to do that. I want to become that. I didn't really have a passion like that. In my final year of high school, I wanted to start accounting, but I was
Mm.
told that, oh, if you're going to start accounting, Zambia has got a very good accounting school. So I was told that if you're going to study accounting, you're going to go to a local school, right? So I quickly had to rewire my mind, and because I was like, what's the point of paying all this money when you can get one of the best schools probably in the entire continent of Africa, right in Zambia. So they're like, if you want to start accounts, you have to stay. So then I was like, you know what? So
Oh,
let's reprogram, right? And then the thing is, the only thing the two things that I was so sure I couldn't do. I couldn't be a
hmm.
doctor and I couldn't be a lawyer. But and because well I believe I'm still intelligent, right? I knew I could do anything I put my mind to. If I wanted to become a doctor, I knew I would do it, but I didn't just like biology and all that. So I my mind was
I didn't know.
made
I didn't like the sight of blood. So,
up. Same here. Man, if I got to hospital, I hate the hospitals. Anyway, yeah, so I didn't want I definitely knew I cannot be a lawyer and I cannot be a doctor. But I knew anything else, whatever I put my mind to do, I would do it. So and yeah, so after I was done with high school, I was working with by then we're trying to construct some apartments. So there's a guy I was working with. He had studied electrical, and they were like, "Oh,
hmm.
you've been hanging out with this man too much. Maybe you should also study electrical." And that's how I ended up studying electrical. So it's not like
Oh
something
wow.
that I was really passionate about because I knew that whatever I was gonna study,
Hmm.
even if I studied medicine or law, I knew that I was sure gonna succeed. I wasn't so it's not like I was so passionate about it, but I guess life just happened.
Yeah, but you got somebody who kind of was a motivation for you, right? Was he a motivation for you? The person that you were hanging around um, at that time that led you into electrical engineering?
Not really. I wouldn't say it was really a motivation. I just feel it's just the way life unfolded. Because the reason why I was hanging out with them, because like I said, we're constructing some apartments, and the apartments were at a time when you had to put in the wiring, right? Like put in the
Hmm.
electrical wiring. So because I used to kind of manage that project. So anytime he needed to buy anything, I'll go buy the stuff for him, drop it off. Then they're like, okay, you've been working too well with this guy. Maybe you should consider electrical.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
so, so I guess it was just the turnaround of events.
Oh, okay. And then fast forward, you came to Canada to study. How, and then you graduated. Did you get into electrical engineer, like get an electrical engineering job right away, or did you had any challenges?
So after I graduated from college, actually, even before I think in my last semester, maybe last year, there was I met some guys who were trying to start up a company. They were
Hmm.
trying to build an escape from downtown Ottawa. So these guys, they knew what they were doing, but they really did not know what they were doing, right? So they asked me to, okay, come on board, do like wire in some sensors and things like that. So I was like, you know what, that's fine. I'm still in school. So I started doing that. But like I said, the guys had no vision. Eventually we finished the escape room, but
But
it's now closed.
Pastor Joe, how did you get that How did you just, or did you just bump into them, or were you around when they were talking about it, and then you? How did you create that connection? Was it
So
like?
they Algonquin has like a job posting portal. So they posted a job. So I applied
Mhm.
for the job. That's how I got connected to the guys.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's good. And working with them.
Yeah, so I worked with them, but like I said, they had no vision. They kind of, I think they're trying to replicate something they saw in Vancouver. They wanted to
Okay,
bring to Ottawa, but they took some guy from Vancouver who used to work for one of the escape rooms, but I think he oversaw himself. So they had the vision, but it wasn't too clear. So I started working with them before I graduated. Um, I worked there for a little bit after graduation while I was still looking for a job. Then eventually I landed a job at Alstom. So Alstom is a company that built the trains in Ottawa. So I
okay,
started off as an electrical test technician. Basically, we were working on we're basically testing all the electrical components on the train. Yeah,
that must have been a really good experience.
it was
Because
right.
I'm just imagining me coming from Sierra Leone and start working on a train. Like we don't have a train back home, and I'm working on a train. I'm like, that's
You know,
that's
you
a
know
good
what,
experience.
you know what that job taught me. Everything complicated is simple if you just understand it. The trends
Mhm.
look all this complicated, but at the end of the day, it's just small little simple little things that make it that sophisticated, right? But these
Mhm.
days I'm very careful to say I worked on those trends with how often they break. People be like, you didn't do a good job at testing those trends.
Yeah, but anyways, it is what it is at this point. You know, we have to deal with it. Just deal with it as it is right now.
Yeah.
So, Pastor Joe, after that experience, and then I guess you moved on from that experience into something else, right?
Yeah, so basically, when I was working at the train place, it was a contract, and as an international student, there's PR and all that. Then there were rumors, oh, the contract might not get renewed, and I really needed a permanent job, right? I needed a full-time permanent job for immigration. So I think I did a train test maybe for about maybe 2 years or something. Then after that, I started looking. I started looking again. Then eventually, I found another job in building automations, and up to now, I'm still doing building automation.
Wow. So, building automation, Pastor Joe, what's that's all about? Like in terms of like high level, what's
High
that
level.
all about?
So basically, right now, a lot of companies spend a lot of money on energy, right? Energy is
Mhm.
probably one of the biggest expenses for a lot of companies. So basically, we just try to optimize the we try to optimize the system so that they're running as efficient as possible to save the companies money, so they're not spending they're not spending way too much on utilities and things like that. High level, that's
High
what
level.
I
That's good. But do you do any sort of controls programming at all? Is it
we do.
anything involved in?
Yeah, we do, right? Because to optimize the system, you have to program, you have to install sensors. Right now, my role doesn't really involve that because I work for a company that that kind of manages this building. So we have vendors to do that, but my role right now is more managing those vendors, making sure that they complete the work, making sure they're following the contract. And then I do some minor repairs here and there, but that if time allows. But yeah.
No, okay. So, what would you say are the key skill sets someone would need to be successful in the role or in building? Did you say
Building automation.
building automation? Yeah.
I think the key things is troubleshooting, right? Always think outside the box, right? You have to. There's a lot of troubleshooting. You have to be industrious, and I think methodical thinking, right? Methodical ways of processing a problem, because I find that a lot of people, you have a challenge, but you're just trying everything. And the funny thing in Canada, nobody fixes anything. So you find somebody is telling you to replace 20 things, you replace all the 20 things and something is still not working, right? That just tells you they didn't do a good job at thinking through the problem well, right? If you have to
Mhm.
change 20 things and the problem is still not solved. So you have to be a critical thinker, think in a logical way, right? And then just love what you do, right? Because every day is different.
True, true. I guess if you're passionate about anything, you'll be ready to put in the work to
Exactly.
master it, right? So, Pastor Joseph, final questions for you.
Mhm.
So, you left Zambia, you've been living in Canada for a while, you're now building automation engineer. What's the journey? What's the inspiration or motivation behind your journey?
What's the inspiration? I guess it's just there's I always want to do good for myself and my family, right? So that's what inspires me. And another thing that really inspires me to do what I do is like I like the way the world is evolving, especially in terms of
Mm,
technology, right? So it really I want to be part of the change. I want to understand the change. I don't want to be left. I don't want to be left behind where the trends have moved forward, and yet you're still in a little corner, right? So that's what drives doing better for my family, and just also being part of the new era of things, because you can never know what you discover, right? So I'm
no.
always trying to be on the cutting edge of what's going on in the industry.
Well said. Well said, my friend. Pastor Joe, I don't know if you've seen my podcast, but I always ask a few questions at the end of the podcast. It's more like
Yes.
a rapid fire questions, something
Mhm.
like that. Not too much these days, but something like that.
Okay.
Anyways, so I have 5 questions for you.
Sure.
Easy questions. We're just
Okay.
gonna go through them easy. No big deal. All right. First question: what is your favorite Bible verse or chapter, and why?
I think my favorite verse in the Bible, I guess, is Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1, to do children obey your parents, for this is right, right? That's the only commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you. I love it because I think my life is a product of that verse, right? And I think
Mhm.
it's very fundamental, right? And I can see the benefits of that verse in my own life.
Well said. Well said. It also gives me the African vibe too, Children obey you.
Well, you might be in Canada, but you're still an African.
True, true. All right. So I know, second question. I know you've moved on to other responsibilities within the church
Mhm.
as a church leader, and you're no longer a cell leader. So question is, what do you miss about cell?
I technically should lead. I should lead cell in a way. Just that I moved on from the other guys. I'm now dealing
Mm.
more with the younger folks. So
Oh
I'm really
yeah?
part of a cell. Yeah. So I still do cell. So it's still
Yeah.
it's still part of me, though I'm not really actively leading like every week. But I'm still working with two guys. So in a way, it should
Okay,
do cell.
okay, okay. Let me rephrase the question. What do you miss about your former cell, the all men
Oh,
cell?
oh my God. Anyway, I think it's a relevance. One of the things that's happening now is that times are changing too quickly. If
Mm,
somebody is 5 years younger than you, the difference in what you're going through is so much, right? But
mhm,
because now I'm working with younger guys, so it's like I'm trying to find I'm trying to find a way to be relevant to them. While when I was dealing with the cell that you're part of, it was easier for me to relate because I know that what I'm going through, you're probably going through it or coming out of it, right? So
mhm.
I kind of feel that with with your cell, it was easier for me to be myself and should be effective. But with the younger ones, I have to find ways to be relevant to them so that I can minister to them properly.
I think that's very insightful because you need to be able to connect with them, right? And
Exactly.
because you guys are experiencing two different worlds, I would say you guys are in two different worlds. How do you bridge, find the connecting
Exactly.
bridge between that?
Yeah, and
Ah,
man, it's fun. It's funny how a few years age gap. It's like what they're going through, what's happening now in the world is
mhm.
totally different from what it was 5 years ago.
Well, I wish you all the best on that, Pastor Joe. I guess we'll talk about this another time. All right, next question. Um, having been around you for a while, this is not an experience that we share, but something I noticed about you.
Mhm,
So, having been around you for a while, I noticed you like to talk about business.
mhm.
All right. So, how does business fit into your life currently?
Oh wow. I'm just beginning to realize I'm passionate about business, right?
Mhm.
We have a startup that we started doing, I don't know, about a year or so ago for the kids rental ball pits and things like that. And I just realized I'm actually passionate, because one thing, and I do a few other things that people don't know, but I think that's the most
Mhm.
popular one for those in my circle that they know. I've realized that I'm a problem solver. Right, so I like the challenge that business brings, right? Because every day it's like you're putting out one fire or another, and it's like if you don't do it, no one will do it. It's not like at work where you can leave the work undone and somebody will come and do it for you. So
Right.
how it ties in is I just think I've just realized that I'm passionate about it. I love to do it. I love to like I said, I like to solve problems, right? So I think that's one of the reasons why business is beginning to become interesting the past year or so.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know. This is just a follow up question. It's not part of the question, but I just want to follow up
Mhm,
question is like, you know how things are expensive
mhm.
here in Ottawa or in Canada as a whole.
Canada.
Do you feel like getting into business is like a way?
to
solve our money issues.
it is right, and this might be a bit personal. Like I just renewed the mortgage of my house, and my mortgage doubled. My work income did not double. So how do I how
How
do I
does
pay
that?
for the double? Right? You have
Uh-huh.
to do something else on the side. And today, I don't know if you noticed, I posted something on my status. When the Bible admonishes us, you need to do 7 little things. If one thing doesn't work, another thing will work, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it is honestly a way. And like you're saying, it's becoming very hard to survive on your salary. So you've got to do
Yeah,
other things on the side to supplement your salary.
exactly. And that's what I'm noticing too, like, yeah. Anyway, let's not get into that, because if we get into that, we will be here
We'll
for
be
the
here for
next.
another hour.
Yeah. All right. Second, the fourth question.
Mhm,
Right. You know, I don't know much about Zambia,
mhm.
and I wanted to ask you a little bit about Zambia. But how do you feel like your life in Zambia prepared you for the challenges that you met in Canada?
All right. I left Zambia very young, but
Mm-hmm.
before leaving Zambia, I went to a boarding school, right? And I kind of feel like the boarding school kind of developed a level of discipline in me, right? Because when you're an international student, you're all by yourself, right? So you really need the discipline to go to class and all that. Because I know a lot of people that just come and sleep throughout the entire semester. So I feel like the discipline really helped me when I came to Canada. Predominantly the discipline obtained from boarding school, because in boarding school it's like you're on a timetable. You do this at this time and things like that, right? So I think that has really helped me to be where I'm at today.
Well said. Well said. I think we well, I came a little bit older because I wasn't as young. I came a little bit older, but yeah, the experiences, the life experiences, and the challenges that I went through in Sierra Leone was a big contributing factor to me, being focused when I got here and not get carried away. So I kind of relate to the answer that you just gave. Final one, Pastor Joe. This is an easy one. So if I were to visit Zambia,
Mhm.
I would say maybe the capital. I don't know. Yeah, let's say capital. You put the
Yeah,
capital.
yeah.
Okay, so let's say I'm a tourist. I want to visit Zambia. Which three tourist spots should I check out?
Of course, the Victoria Falls, right? The Victoria Falls, that one, I think that's the prime of Zambia. In
Okay.
terms of the other two, there's last time I went to Zambia, I went to a place called Chimnuka or something like that. It's in the capital city. I really liked the
Well,
neighborhood.
what's that about?
It's like a national park.
Oh, okay, and it
Yeah,
has all these
different kind of
animals.
animals and things like that. For the
Mhm.
third one, let's see. Why did we go for health vacation? Yeah, I guess maybe another national park. Zambia is rich in national parks, but Livingstone definitely, the Victoria Falls, that one is number one. Then one or two other national parks.
All right. Follow-up question. Which side? Because you know how you go to Niagara Falls and say the Canadian side is better than the US side. So is the Zambia side better than
Well,
Zimbabwe side?
of course, right? Zambians really get offended when you are deliberately part of the Victoria Falls to Zimbabwe.
Really?
Just in case my Zambian folks watch
Hey,
it, I'll
I
say,
didn't know. Sorry about that. I didn't
no,
know. I
my
didn't know.
apologies.
Okay, all right. We'll give it to Zambia then. Pastor Joe, this was amazing catching up with you on the podcast, to get a glimpse into your life journey. I mean, I think I've learned a lot, and I've gotten to know what motivates you, what you're passionate about, and I'm grateful for the opportunity for you to just join me this evening and spend some time with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure having this chat.